This sint the hagen at Bryningtune. I'm in Brimpton, which means the estate that belongs to Brynna, or Brynna. Well, maybe you should pronounce it Brynna because it comes out as Brimpton. That Y is pronounced as an U, an E, and an I in Old English. It's hard to nail down exactly what it might have been. It can have, it's a varied sound. Anyway, I'm on a byway, not just a footpath. This is how all roads, pretty much in England, 200, 300 years ago, were like. You have a ditch on either side to make sure you don't take your cart off into people's fields, and to drain the fields. And it's not paved at all. And some roads, they come out, some lanes, they remain important into the modern period and are tarmacked. Others didn't make the cut. It's Boxing Day and ever so quiet. Not just the amount of traffic, there's no noise either. Nobody's doing anything. There are people out and about walking. I've only done 100 yards. It's the traditional way to spend a Boxing Day, is out for a walk with the family. I'm out walking on my own, but not because nobody wants to walk with me. It's because I tend to do sort of 4, 5, 6, 7 miles, and my wife might enjoy that if we were, say, in the Andes, not a muddy backwater of the Kennet, which is where we are now. I'm sure it's beautiful in the summer. It's a bit less so. It is beautiful. I'm enjoying it. I haven't seen this part of the landscape of Berkshire, God's own country, and Brimpton is one of those names that my father used to bandy about, as I assume it's where, when in his youth, he was motorbikeling around here with his mates. He talks of Brimpton and Tadley and places like that, Baghurst. So if you're tracing Anglo-Saxon charters, and by the way, this is, if you're new to this channel, put my teeth back in. If you're new to this channel, what I do is do basic. I'm interested in land use and the medieval and ancient use of the land, and barrows and hill forts. But the lens through which I look at all of this is the lens of the Anglo-Saxon land charters, where they described, when giving an estate to a subject of the king, a reward for, or he sold it to them. It had to be described exactly what he was being given, and that was an outer boundary, and it would be described in words. They didn't draw these maps; they were word maps describing the landscape. Now we have them all over the south, a little bit in the Midlands, hardly any in the north. But if you're lucky, these Anglo-Saxon estates mirror almost exactly the modern English parish that you're investigating. And I think this one does. Like Dalesford, which I did a couple of videos ago, it matches very, very close. The description matches perfectly the landscape, the parish. So the estate later on becomes a set of manors, but the church that is built here, even though the estate is divided up, still maintains the whole of the old estate, to service the spiritual needs of those people and to bring in 10% of their wealth at the same time, called tithes. And so you get this political continuity sometimes, not always. Probably about half of them don't match the Anglo-Saxon charters, and about a quarter are just incomprehensible. Well, we can make a good effort at them. There are other ways of doing it, but this one coincides. Now this is Brimpton, Bryningtune, Brynner's estate. I was told off for not using the correct pronunciation of Old English, the textbook pronunciation. Now I've gone the opposite way and hyper corrected what I know not to be true. But anyway, there's a Roman road over there. Let's get down to business. Cut straight across there. We'll see, with all this rain recently, see whether we can see any rain-filled ruts. Probably not, because this is one of those enigmatic Roman roads that everybody knows is there, but has left little trace, which is quite strange, because the Romans were good engineers and built causeways for wet land, well, everywhere, but it is particularly useful in wet land because you're above the water. So it's I'm absolutely amazed how it's been completely obliterated for quite a long stretch. But the archaeologists have found it. But I'm really here. I like it when lots of things layer up, interesting items layer up in a video, because there's always the danger I'm not going to find what it is I'm actually looking for, which is to Haga, Hargan. And Haga comes out later on as it's one of the words that becomes hedge. There's plenty of those here. So we're starting in the middle of the Saxon Charter. It's because the whole point is to go for a good walk, try not to get run over on dodgy roads, and to show something of nature and the landscape to you and to me. And so the charter talks of where the Arlaborn and the Cunatan shooteth. I think it says shooteth. Hold on, bear with me. Yeah, just check me records. Yeah, it's where the Arlaborn shoot out on Cunatan. So that basically, that shooting normally means going downhill. We still have that. We have a lot of shoot hills, red shoot hill and things like that. But it's not often used like that in English anymore, but we can recognise it. And it's where the Arlaborn and the Cunatan meets. Now, which are these two rivers? The two great rivers in West Berkshire. The Cunatan is our old friend, the Kennet, the holy and inviolable River Kennet. It's an old British name which the English took on when they got here. And however, the Arlaborn is that means the alor, which is alder, the alder tree, which you often find near rivers. And it's no longer called that, it's called something else entirely today. It's the Enborn, which used to be Enedburn, which means duck stream. So now we know they're called that because I've done a video before, possibly even more than one, I think of Beacon Hill, and we can cross-reference these names, across the landscape from the documents in different places. So that's how I know that the Arla is the Enborn. So it says then, go up the stream, the Arla to Shell down Ford, which means shallow ford, and that survives today in the name Shalford Farm, which is on the bridge there. Now, it doesn't seem to be, there was no actual sign down here. It's as if they're not really proud of such old names anymore. There's a great big sign for this estate I'm walking through, but not for Shalford, which is, I mean, Wasing is an old name, that's Anglo-Saxon, but I think Shalford is just as cool. Now it's there's a good chance of seeing deer, so I've got to be on the alert. I'm going to put the GoPro down in a minute and get the old telephoto out. The reason for this is, after having done this for a long time now, you can tell where deer would like to be. They want to be, if you take a map and there's like 4 villages, the deer will be, and if there's a piece of woodland somewhere near the middle, the deer will be grazing somewhere in the middle, you know, on the farmer's corn and on pasture and so on. So it is likely they'll be here. And now, particularly because common people have been erased from this landscape by enclosure. This was parkland. It was still is parkland essentially, but in medieval and later times, parkland meant something extremely privileged because deer belonged to the king. And if you have parkland, it means the king has favoured you with something that really only belongs to him. So I was halfway through telling you what my objectives were for this video, and they are to do with the hedges. There are 2 hedges named Haga, if you remember all the way back. Now I want to see if I can date them using Hooper's rule, and I probably can't because they're now wooded. And Hooper's rule, it must be a hedge, not a wood behind it. But that aside, I'm going to give it a go. The reason for that is because I have a date, and this is the 9th century, I think. Anyway, 1,000 years or more old. So it's something to test our ideas against. But I'm going to try and confirm they are the remains of a hedge. One of them definitely is a hedge, probably still is hedged. But whether or not that hedge is moved, we don't know. And one way we can tell is to look for a wood bank, which is a bank marking out the edge of a wood. And those are medieval. So if the edge of the wood today is on a wood bank, that will confirm that we are looking at something possibly quite old. It's extra, we're layering information. So those are my objectives. So there's 2 of them. There's one down near we're going to go back to the river Enborn. There's one down there and there's one up here. And it's very wooded. I don't know whether you can see through all the mist. And it's probably been wooded for a long time. So these green lanes are really quite attractive. And somehow the people around here have defended these public ways on very private parkland. The rich just don't want us here. And so we need those council bothering ex-schoolmasters that turn up to council meetings complaining about rights of way, as well as you and I keep walking these paths, because they it is a dynamic situation, footpaths. They come and go, sometimes in our favour, sometimes not. It's vigilance. So how do I know that this was probably very wooded in the early medieval period? It comes down to, there's two place names around here that are pretty strong. Baghurst and Horhurst, and they both have Hurst in them. Hurst means wood. It's one of the many names we have for woodland in English. So that strongly points to, I was wondering what that noise was. I think it was a gamekeeper. What that strongly points towards is that there was a lot of woodland here, and it's still, the fact that a lot of it is still here today. And there was, okay, so I'm stood next to some sort of, I don't know what they are, pine trees. I'm not very good with coniferous trees, but there are ashes and oaks and so on in there. It's probably an old, and I can see some hazel and beech, and so it's not been coppiced. It's obviously parkland. This is for deer to wander around. So that two things: deer wander around, shoot them, hunt them down, eat them, or two, wandering around in a carriage, showing how rich you are. And but those Hurst words definitely point towards woodland, and the fact that we have Haga can mean a woodland that's enclosed by a hedge. And you might think all woodland has a hedge, but these hedges prevent animals from getting out. They're game enclosures. So these two Hagas might have always been game enclosures, not your single hedge running through a field on the edge of a field, but rather a hedge enclosing a wood. So it's going to make it very difficult to date using Hooper. But anyway, Old Horhurst is an interesting name. The English Place Name Society, there's two counties that they haven't, for some God knows reason, haven't done yet, and that's Somerset and Hampshire, and we're entering Hampshire in a minute. And it is frustrating that there are. This is an not enterprise is not the right word. People coming together to do a job, which is to talk about our past and control the knowledge of hold it in place, give factual information about our place names, and they haven't done it. So that means I have to either guess using the knowledge that I have, or go to the Public Records Office and have a look what the earliest names are for Horhurst. It's unusual. We know what Baghurst is. There's Berger, which is probably a man called Berger, or could be badger, but it's probably a man called Berger. But hoar is unusual. Now, a lot of, if it was northern, I would be thinking Hauga, Haugara. Sorry, I'm going to channel Jackson Crawford now. Hauga, wish I had my hat. Hauga, which means basically a barrow. And there are barrows. There's a whole big, massive barrow cemetery up here. But the problem is we're down south. This is England. This was never taken over. Well, the Vikings did rampage through here, and we very nearly became Viking. But it was eventually the south resisted and kicked them out. But a lot of Scandinavian names exist up north, but they don't down here. So Hor is probably Haga, which we have that name again, possibly. But this is all guesswork. It could be something entirely different because I don't know what the oldest record is, because the place name people haven't done their work yet. So please pull your finger out. This is the Haga, and we have a wood bank. Can you see that here? Goes along there. There's a hump, and that with a ditch on the outside, and that tells us that this boundary has been here forever. This is an old medieval boundary. So now I need to get my old pen out and count some species. We're here on the map, and this is on the boundary, the parish boundary between Brimpton and Wasing, and you can see on the 1800s map that it is the same as it is today on the current map. I think that this boundary has been here for 1,000 years along this hedge edge here, and I think that because the Saxon charter matches very well the description very well what we can see today. So it says on Longhagen ut on Heathfelde, which means along the hedge to Heathfield. And you can see here on the 1800s map a copse called Heathfield's Copse in Wasing Wood. I know from experience that Aldermaston, the Aldermaston area is very heathy. I make it 800 years, which is pretty thrilling. I'm pretty excited about that. 7 species times 110. and add 30 at the end, and there you get the age of your hedge. Theoretically, it's a rule of thumb, but you add it to other data that you might have, in this case a Saxon charter, and this is definitely the edge of the woodland, the enclosure, the game enclosure, because of the wood bank. There's also a road which separates it from the wood, so I'm going to try and sneak it in under Hooper's rules for that reason. But it is anyway, boiled egg and cucumber sandwiches today. A sprinkling of salt on it. Never mind my blood pressure. Bob's your uncle. Incidentally, I'm sat on a laid beech tree. This beech tree, as you can see, has been laid. It's been spread out. This is just one beech tree with multiple leaders coming off it. And which is remarkable, because you wouldn't have beech down as a hedging plant. And I would say also the predominant species was the holly. The holly is sprinkled heavily, is far in the majority. And then you get your so I don't know whether ecologically the holly is a plant that lives on the edge of woodland, or it was deliberately laid. But I didn't see any the traditional hedging plants of. I didn't see the white or the blackthorn. That is the hawthorn and blackthorn, which is interesting in itself. But as you can see, it hasn't been maintained as a laid hedge. So you know, laid hedges will last forever, but well, no, not forever. But you know what I mean. And if you let them go, they will die of their own. They'll degrade and then die. But I'm well chuffed with that. 800 years, so it takes you back to 1224, which is absolutely thrilling to me. I mean, it's not 870 or whatever my charter is, but I don't care. Hit medieval and I'm happy. That was very enjoyable. Enjoyed that a lot. Since I reported my results to you, I found two other trees, the elder and a rhododendron. I suspect rhododendrons are recent. Who knows? But the elder. If you can only find one of each species on a 500-yard stretch, it's probably not diagnostic, would you? You know, I'm sure you'd agree. Anyway, what is diagnostic though is these bricks. I was about to say early 19th century to mid 19th century, but it's 1848. There was much more to this parish than I thought. So I think this is going to be 2 or 3, maybe even 4 videos on this area. We have Bronze Age barrows, or maybe later barrows, that are named in the charter. We have old rivers with names that have changed from the Saxon period. It is and some herepaths as well. So stay tuned, and I'll cover these things. If you've enjoyed this video, please watch this one next. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon. Ta-da for now.